Well, hey all, and welcome back. Today I have Bandai's high-grade 144 scale Mazinkaiser Infinitism. And if heavy metal was personified as a giant robot, I think this design takes it. Let's go ahead and get out of the package, check it out, and see if it's worthy of our collection. So we've laid out all the runners before we get started. And there are quite a few. We've got red, black, gold, some silver, and clear plastics. So this is the main body runners, and on top of that, we've got another set just for a stand. Now, I don't know how much I like this stand because it's sort of this gear system I've seen before, which can be kind of fragile, but hopefully this figure won't even need one. But if we do, we've got a stand included to go along with it. All right, so here we have the initial build, and I want to go over a few things before I go any further in putting this figure together, and as well as some changes. So we have a little spaceship that is actually the flight mode of what transforms to be in his head. So you have two variations of that. Both use stickers, and they're stickers on his face. The only other place there could be stickers is under this gem, and I opted not to use that, mostly because I had already inserted it before I saw the stickers, and I don't want to mar anything up taking it out. The other thing I did that was unique to this was I panel lined the silver pieces. So you can see here the dark line contrast that goes through his ab section, his helmet, his arms. All that's been panel lined. I think that came out pretty well and looks pretty sharp. The other thing I had to panel line was the slits on his mouth, as well as the little black areas on this part of the helmet above his head. You don't have to do that. However, I think if you do not panel line that, the kit's going to look a little bit more flat and generic. You'll still see some of the detail. I just don't think it would look as good as going through that effort for a straight build. Now, as far as materials go, he's really cool looking. Of course, being a model kit, he is a little bit lighter than some might like because it's not a true action figure. It is a model kit, but we have a few different colors here. We have the black that is a large bulk of the body. We have the silver pieces, which is a nice silver. It has a nice reflection on it, but the problem with it is when you get close, there are a little bit of swirl marks on parts of it. It wasn't something I expected at first, and you really don't notice it once you've built it, but it's something that stands out as I'm going along. We also have some clear plastic here for the red parts, and we have gold bits on the joints. Now, this is the part I think could be better. On the horns, the gold actually seems to look the best. It actually looks the most metallic. Now, this is straight from the kit. They're unmodified. What I do feel like, though, even though I like how the gold breaks up the figure, is that it's a little too plasticky looking. It looks a little too generic compared to the rest of the figure. So the options are either to panel line it, which is what they did in their own illustration, or to use optional pieces. So they have two of these pieces as well in this sort of gunmetal color. And frankly, I think a couple of these pieces I'm going to go ahead and switch out, which would be the hips here. I think that is probably the most highly contrast area that sort of hurts the figure, but I do like having the knees and the other bits gold. The other area would be on the neck, just because the detail on the neck, there is a little bit of molded detail, but the problem is it's not deep enough and it just doesn't have good contrast. So when you have these really nice sculpted pieces and all this detail, that piece sort of stands out. So I'm going to try to deal with the neck and deal with the hips and knees. So now we've sort of talked about the part separation, all that, which is quite good. Let's talk about the actual posability of this figure. So we have some ankle movement. We have a little bit of tilt both ways. We have more movement forward than the back. I really wish we can get a little bit more towards the back, just because that could help with some poses. Say we had one foot forward and one back, but it's not terrible, and it's typical of most figures. The knee is double jointed, which I think is pretty cool. What I do think I want to do, though, is definitely take the knees apart and add panel lining in there, which is quite simple. It won't be too bad, and I think it will improve the look of the kit. But like I said, hips, I'm going to replace. Now, the hips have a dual joint. We have sort of an axis here, and then against the pelvis area, there's actually another joint that kind of lets it go further into the body or further extended so you have more posability. But you do have pieces like this, which sort of do block the forward motion. It doesn't go very far to the back either. So it's not a super posable kit in that respect. You can see how it knocks that off. But with a little bit of fiddling, you can still get some dynamic poses. It will show the weight of the figure with some decent contrapposto, the way it's built. There's enough movement in the hips to give for good standing poses, though they might not be as great for some of the action poses. Waist, we have rotation. There's a little bit of movement at the chest. Really don't want to stress it too much, but there is 2 joints here. But the way with all these extra pieces on here, I just don't feel like it moves very far. Head, we can kind of look up and down, and rotate. We'll get a closer look at the head. The head's really, really awesome looking. And the only place I used stickers was over across the nose. If you wanted to take the time, you of course could just paint it in yourself, but I was just trying to get this built as is. Arms, we have some shoulder movement, but you have to, of course, watch out for all the parts sticking off of him. Then we have some side-to-side movement, and this little flap here over the bicep adds a little bit of sort of mechanical movement to it. So he can get up there. But what I really like is this double-jointed elbow that lets you take this big, bulky figure and sort of get decent arm poses. And then, of course, the wrist is on a ball joint and has a hinge as well. So, I mean, it's fine. And there's multiple sets of hands. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and do a little panel lining to the gold, change out some of the parts for the gunmetal, and then we can start looking at the accessories. Over these next few pictures, you can sort of see the panel lining of the gold before and after. So we have the before, and over here you can see where I'm adding it. It's quite simple. It's really not too complicated. Most people can do it. You just got to make sure you have something to wipe it up with in case you go overboard. But it really brings out the details in the plastic. And so here we have the assembled model kit with the pieces I chose. So I went with the darker colored hips and neck piece, and then with the panel lined other gold pieces. And I think he looks really good. He looks like a premium figure. Until you pick him up and see how light he is, he really looks like a high-end figure. I think they did a great job with the color separation, the molded panel details, as well as just the overall sculpt of this piece. Even though there is a couple stickers on here, I think it looks great. The only thing that really stands out to me that I'm not happy with is the little bit of excess plastic on here, and that can be taken care of with some sandpaper and a little bit of razor blade. So that's something I'll do with later. But yeah, we can go through here and you can see now underneath the arms and the elbows, there's a bit more detail. This looks less gummy plastic inside the shoulders. I even went through inside the pelvis area and added some panel lining, and in the knees. Looks far better, less like a model kit in that respect. But like I'm saying, this kit is done per the instructions. There are a lot of extra pieces. There's some duplicates of pieces in different colors, like you saw with the joints, where you can sort of go with darker gold. But there's also an alternate head, or at least pieces for an alternate head. And what it almost looks like is just a regular Mazinger face mask, and maybe side pieces, a little bit more of a different version. I'm not familiar with the source material. I don't know if this is a new series. I just thought it was a cool line that Bandai was doing. But it doesn't have different eyes or anything. So I have a feeling that you would have to use these pieces with this, or maybe it's an add-on for one of their other kits, because this is a whole line of like 3 or 4 other kits in addition to this one. The instructions do not say. And even so, this is a really fully packed kit. It's fun to build, decent enough posability, awesome look, and with the panel lining, which is really all you need to do, so there's not really any painting, but with the panel lining, like I demoed, is simple enough to do, where if you put that effort into the kit, it's awesome. Now, note for size comparison, he is 144 scale, so here is a Robot Spirits Barbados for comparison, and a Siege Optimus Prime. So it kind of gives you an idea of how big he is. He's smaller than a master grade Gundam figure, but if this is his scale, I think this is how he would sort of be realistically compared to a normal Gundam frame. So let's go into the accessories. And one of those accessories being the stand. Now, I am not a fan of this sort of stand. This one is a little bit different than what I'm used to. It has locks on the top part and the bottom part, and then it has these two different sort of braces to go in the middle depending on how you stand it. Comes with another stand here that is intended for the rocket punch. Should have come with two like this. It actually, and while there is more stand pieces that I did not use, one looks like a traditional like doll stand clamp that clamps on there. And there's sort of a square one, which there's no instructions for, but I haven't messed with yet. But it looks like the square one and this one would allow you to do double rocket punch. I would have rather just gotten these two extra pieces here and being able to just have symmetrical stands on it. So that is one gripe. It's nice that there are stands included, even though it's this brittle plastic, but it works. And as mentioned earlier, we have this little ship that is sort of the flight mode for the pilot before he lands in here, and this is the sort of collapsed version of that. But mentioning rocket punch, we have two of these pieces, and they go on there to sort of give him a rocket punch effect. The only complaint I have about the rocket punch is I do wish there was a way to either cover or remove the peg that's on the arm. Because when you have the arm removed, it sort of stands out, and it would have been nicer to be able to hide that, unless they had provided a stand that could plug into there and go into here to extend the arm from the bicep. One thing I found, if you have Transformers Siege effects parts, they actually do fit on the peg, and that might be a way of covering up and sort of adding a little bit of a blast effect to that to sort of add and hide it so it looks a little bit cooler. We have 4 sword blades, but 3 swords. I guess they just threw an extra blade in case it doesn't work out. 2 are the same, one pretty large, and I did some panel lining on there that makes it look a little bit better. But for as few pieces as they are, I think they're really nice swords. And the plastic for the blade is good enough. It's not perfect. You can sort of see there's some that swirling I mentioned, but not anything major. Then we have hands. We have 2 weapon hands for the swords, and then we have 2 right hands, which are kind of interesting because they're just slightly different expressed. One's more straightforward, and the other one is slightly more open and relaxed. That's kind of cool that we have this. The only thing I do wish they added, you can see here, we only have enough of these wrist pegs for 4 hands. And for all the extra stuff they included, I really would have liked them to add the 2 extra that this could have had just so you don't have to pull them off another hand. One less thing to stress and wear out over time as you switch parts out. And now for the final accessory, those big honking wings. They're pretty awesome. I mean, they're very sculpted. They have lots of cool lines in them. There's some very aggressive shapes going on there. He can stand, so currently no stand, and he can stand with a little bit of adjusting and support the wings. I will go ahead and warn you, I did not pen align these. I started to, and I was finding that this really needs more of a wash, a heavier amount of fluid put in there and then wiped off. I really didn't feel like that, especially since I will not be displaying it with the wings. Even though they're pretty cool, it just takes up too much real estate on a shelf. And I don't think I like the look enough to where I really need them. So I'm going to probably put them back in the box after this, which is why I didn't bother putting them together. And here's a feature that kind of goes along with this. The stand has a special piece to hold them in flight mode to go along with the wings. So it's pretty cool that they sort of thought about that. You have all these different configurations and neat things you can do that give this much more posability and dynamic shelf presence for the rocket punches and the flying and just holding swords and all the other stuff, along with the other parts. This kit really packs a lot. I think it looks good. It's detailed enough. My only gripe would be the instructions could go in maybe another page or 2 that covers a list of what these extra parts are for, and the fact that you really need to panel line it to make it look good and do just a itty bit of black painting. It's very minor. The novice should be able to do it if you just buy the extra Gundam marker, as well as the panel liner you saw me using. But like always, let us know in the comments below if you think this model kit is worthy of your collection. Make sure you like and subscribe, and we'll see you all next time.